But you should be open-minded. That's one of the things that I think society is starting to lose, is everybody's so close-minded and has this rock hard opinion about everything. I'm like, and one of the greatest things that you could see in today's society, what are the two biggest things that people are suffering from mentally? It's depression and anxiety. Those are the two biggest things that are running, mentally speaking, right? This present moment is the only thing that matters, the only thing we have control over. The only thing that actually is affecting us, everything else is thoughts. But everyone has that person inside their heads, and they come out every so often. The trick and the thing I'm trying to do in my book is getting you to have your own access on demand to that person.
Welcome back to our show, Empower Your Life. Cindy Marie here. Our next guest comes from various backgrounds, from teaching to multiple C-level positions. He is always passionate and in love with technology. Thus, he is owning and operating a tech company and a business consulting firm. Not only that, he recently published his first book, Accessing Your True Potential, which we're going to cover that more in this episode, as well as sharing his story. So without further ado, let's all welcome our next guest, Victor Calabrese, or Victorio Calabrese. Hi, Victor.
Hi, Cindy Marie. How are you?
Very good. How are you? How are you?
I'm doing well. I just got off of vacation, so I'm at 100%, super happy, super pumped.
Awesome. I'm so happy. I'm going to take that 100, 200% of yours. So let's dive in, right? For many people, I just shared some highlights that you have already built and created. But many people, including myself, not knowing many detailed information about your story, right? Because I find it very fascinating and interesting to really deep dive in the story of a person who became so successful wherever they are right now. And I want you to share to us, what's your story?
Well, my story is filled with a bunch of failures. And that's how you get success, right? Is just keep your head down and keep failing, fail fast, fail often. As one of my favorite authors likes to say. But that's part of my story, right? I was always a big learner. I loved to learn new things. When I first got into the business world, one of the things I wanted to stay away from was being an entrepreneur. My parents are both entrepreneurs. I saw the struggle of being an entrepreneur. I'm like, I ain't doing that. What I wanted to do was I wanted to get a job, and I got a job. I was very successful. I climbed up the ladder really fast, and I was a C-level executive. I was a CIO of an $80 million a year construction company by the time I was 27 years old. So I was doing really great, but there was always something missing. So late in my my early 40s, late 30s, I started my companies. I'm not 47 years old, and that's all there is to it. I've gotten multiple companies off the ground. Super happy. It was a tough step, but one that was well worth it.
Amazing, amazing. I would like to acknowledge you that at the age of 47, look at you. You have achieved many, many, many things that a lot of people would love to achieve, but I can sense and I can feel you're a humble person.
Yeah, I mean, you have to recognize the struggle that people, because anybody can do what I did. There's nothing special about me. I mean, I've met people that are way more intelligent than me, that are less successful, and I've met people that are way less intelligent than me, that are more successful than me, right? So that has nothing to do with it. It's really about the grit. It's really about putting things in your life that can get you to that place that you can be the best version of yourself, and you can access. And that's why I wrote the book, is because one day at one of the worst points of my life, right? It was when I just started the businesses. I didn't have the income I was used to having come in the door. So a lot of the things in our family, we had to cut down. I was living off savings. And I sat there and I was thinking to myself about all the books. I've read no less than 300 books in my lifetime. And I sat there and I said, wow, I've amassed all this knowledge. And I have 5 children. And I started thinking that every single one of my kids would have to go on a similar path of reading over 300 books and all the mistakes I made in order to get to where I am today. And I said, no. There's got to be a way to make this faster. There's got to be a way that I could help my children. So I sat down and wrote Accessing Your True Potential for them. I sat there and I said, I want to make a book that someone can read on a plane ride, right? So with 4 hours tops, so short, right to the point, but that it takes the best pieces of all these amazing books that are out there and puts it all in one place. So that's why I sat there, I wrote it to my kids. Every single one of my kids has read the book already, except for my 6-year-old. He's a little young for the subject, but my 9-year-old read it, and he probably got 20% of it. As he gets older, he'll probably read it again. But that was the goal. And now I published it because I thought that if I can help my kids, I could help so many other people. And now the book is out.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You mentioned, I was about to ask you, where's the inspiration coming from? And obviously it's the understanding that there's got to be a way from all the books that you have read that you can compress and make it sure that it will be easy access to, I guess, your audience target would be anybody. Is that right?
Yeah, it's pretty much anybody. And it's even the people that love to read to the people that don't like to read, right? Because the whole purpose is really to get around the mystification of all this stuff that's out there. Because something like sleep needs, right? I read a book that was literally that thick on sleep, right?
Yeah.
It's not, sleep is a very complicated subject, and it's not, I'm not trying to diminish how important it is or diminish how much information there. What I'm saying is the average person doesn't need to know all that, right? Let's just talk about the stuff that they need to know, because there is so many other pieces in order for you to really be that best version of yourself that need to be understood. That if you spend all your time learning about sleep and that's all the only thing you're ever going to know, or meditation or prayer or fitness or nutrition, if you spend too much time digging into that one thing, great, you'll be an expert in that one thing, but you're never really going to be the best version of you.
Exactly. And about the book, so obviously you have already covered the intention and the inspiration, where it's coming from and why it's so important for you to publish this book. I'm curious though, how many titles you came up with and finalizing with this title?
So accessing, what was funny is I think the title was a little easier because it was like a handful. Best version of yourself, accessing your true potential. So it was a couple. It was the subtitle that was really hard, right? Because the book, it has, the 4 core principles. So there was a lot of things that, because that cover is so important to enable to be able to market the book, right? The title, I think, hits home really easily. I think the original title, if I remember correctly, was Your True Potential, not so much Accessing Your True, and then we added it in there. But the subtitle, that took some time. That had like 20 or 30 different variations.
Oh, wow. I must say though, because in this book, for those people, we're going to cover some of the content of this book, but the rest we will encourage you to purchase. I'm gonna share my review or feedback in a while, but one of the many things that I have noticed will be you have so many how do you call that, the pillars, right? And diagram, if you can call that way, and that pretty much really emphasize how you practice from your corporate life, to the book. And so my feedback and review with this, since you mentioned that who's your target audience, it's super easy to read, in a sense that there's a huge content in it. And I love that you provided the entire importance, in my opinions, the same thing, especially, you cover everything. And and when I read it, it's so easy, because one of those things that I always mention to people as my feedback to those newly author who publish new books is the accessing the book in the easiest to read, terminologies, because again, a lot of people would have a hard time to understand if you're using the deep terminologies. And with this book, I guess only the nutrition or the health terms that obviously we can't change to the easiest one, but I think people would know, okay, that's the terminology. But other than that, it's so super easy to read. And I actually sat down for an hour to sit down and read it through. And one of those things that I found, like, you have really put in depth in terms of nutrition.
Mhm.
I realized that, like, oh my God, you really put an effort and time spending with the nutrition. And I think you have a very meaningful and a very, how do you say it, like a lot of stories that came into your life that I think it's very valuable to share, especially that you mentioned a little bit about your sugar addiction.
Yeah.
Right. So at what point that you have recognized that nutrition is super vital? That,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it's a great question. So for the audience sake, I got up to 350 pounds. I was morbidly obese. I have done every single diet you could think of out there. And I believe I was about 25, 26 years old. It was after I had gastric bypass, which in my eyes is one of the biggest mistakes I made. But then is when I started to understand that obesity is a mental issue. It is not a physical issue. There's very few people that have a physical issue with obesity. I mean, the consequences of them are physical, but the actual problem is your addiction to sugar, is your addiction to being that sensation of being full, right? And something like gastric bypass tries to fix that problem by surgery, which is a physical means to fixing a mental issue. So at that point, I realized that, I'm not thinking about this the right way. I started exploring more about nutrition, and half the problem with nutrition is people don't understand it. Because once you understand nutrition, it's really not that hard. Look, I am not at the best shape. I used to be 170 pounds at one point. I got to the point where I was bodybuilding. I was super ripped and and I didn't feel healthy then either, right? I was on the opposite end of that spectrum. So what I've come to realize is that nutrition is not that hard. Making good food selections, making sure you cut yourself out. I talk about the 80% rule. That's a really big one that you could put into your dieting, because I could tell people right now, all you have to do is eat 80% of whatever you're eating, and you will make gains. You will actually start losing weight. You shall actually start doing nothing else. You want to eat McDonald's? It's not the best choice, but go ahead, but eat 80% of what you're doing, right? And you'll see you'll start making gains. Do 80% more walking, and you start making gains, right? Then you start talking about the fitness part of it. Fitness is not that complicated either. Just moving, getting yourself moving is all you need to do. And then, and the biggest theme to the book is really, as I start talking about the four core wheels and the six pillars, right, is that there is no one thing that you can just put your finger on and say, that's the thing I'm going to do that's going to change my life. You have to put all these things in your life, right? So in the book, I talk about the health wheel, I talk about the clarity wheel, I talk about the peace wheel, I talk about the power wheel. And in order to actually be the best version of you, you have to have all these four things spinning in your life. Nutrition and fitness, I think, is the one that you have to start with first, because they affect your body so much that you could actually put the other three wheels in place. And without that health wheel in place, to talk to anybody that's had the flu, talk to anybody that's had any kind of illness, they can't be the best version of themselves if your body's not at its top performing place.
I totally agree with you. I am 100% supportive with health is wealth. Health is our primary asset to achieve whatever we want to achieve. But at the same time, when you mention about this obesity, about the mindset, I also want to reiterate that I think what a lot of people lack of would be bringing awareness. What we think of the condition outside of society, just because this is what we see, this is the right thing to do. For example, we are dealing with a lot of junk food outside with a brand, big names like McDonald's, Burger King, and all of that. People think that's the healthiest way to achieve healthier lifestyle, but really it's understanding, how do you love yourself? It starts with loving yourself. When you love yourself and you start to understand, okay, how can I actually break down to love myself more? It's really looking into, what do you eat? What do you drink? And also, what do you feed in your mind? And everything else, this health, clarity, power, peace, I absolutely agree that it has to be complete, because if not, once it's broken, I think it will reflect from the brain, body, and everything else. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's more than that, because each of the wheels actually feed onto each other. So what ends
Yes.
up happening, as you get that health wheel spinning, it helps you get that clarity wheel spinning, which helps you get that peace wheel spinning, because each one of these are codependent on each other. And then
Yes.
once you go all the way back around and you've got the three of them spinning, it'll actually get your health wheel spinning even faster, right? And I'm human. I'm going to tell you right now, there is every single moment in my life where I'm at any point where the wheels are spinning faster, slower, but I keep working at it. And the reason why I keep working at it is because I know, like right now, I don't feel I'm at a very good weight, right? I think that I need to shed like 10 pounds. I think I got to do a little more fitness. I've put too much concentration on working, not enough on taking care of myself, which is human. It's part of the human reality, right? But because I know all this stuff, in the back of my mind, I know I got to get home and get on that Peloton, or I have to go take a walk with my wife, and maybe when I'm having dinner, like today I'm skipping lunch. Why am I skipping lunch? Because it's my wife's birthday and we're going out to eat, right? So I'm going to save a couple of those calories, which, some people call it intermittent fasting. There's all these fancy words around it, but you can do things like that in your life if you understand this stuff.
Yeah. And I think, this is why I love the words experiment and explore, because there's no such thing as one strategy or formula works for everyone. Right. So just experiment, if the fasting works for you, then go for it. If it doesn't, then don't do it. But just keep on experimenting and exploring, because then you would find out what works for you. And like, I would say this, give yourself a break. You just came from a vacation. So it's fine that you're not at your best physical. But again, the awareness that it's okay. I had my break and now I'm coming back to my routine once again to bring back my full energy with these 4 pillars. Now, the next question I have for you, I also noticed that there's so many spiritual aspects in your context in the book. So how does that actually came into the picture that led you to learn really in depth and up to date? How does it benefit you? Especially, I would like to highlight this because in my opinion, or at least in the people that I know, they are not so open to talk about spirituality. So talk about that. How does it benefit you, and where exactly in the position of your life that led you to work on that with that?
So yeah, it's a fantastic question. And again, it's all because all this stuff is all interwoven into each other, right? So one of the best wheels, and I would say if God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, gave me a gift, it's my gift of curiosity. I love to learn. I've always loved to learn. One of the things that I did when I was very young is I used to take electronics apart just to see what was inside, right? So I have this natural curiosity. And I was born and I was baptized Catholic. I was brought up in a Catholic household. I followed a religion. I went to faith formation, CCD, whatever you want to call it. I even went to Catholic school at one point. So I was very, very Catholic, but my inquisitive mind wanted more, wanted to understand, why am I so passionate as a Catholic, but that Christian is so passionate as a Christian, and that Jewish person is so passionate, that Muslim, because I don't believe I'm the smartest person in the world. I think that there's people way smarter than me, right? So what is it about that religion that is so important to them that makes them live on that plane and myself live on the other one? And it all came down to me as I started doing more and more research. It's all about morality, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, all these religions are the same. They have all the same moral foundation. Yes. And if you take the stories out of it, and if you take all the rhetoric, and if you take all the emotions out of it, they're all the same. They're all about being a good person and helping other people, right? Yes. So I wanted to learn more. I started reading more. I've read, there's a fantastic book. I can't remember the name of it. I believe it's in the book. I don't remember if I put it in there, but it's about the 13 or the 12 most powerful religions in the world. Right. And as I started reading through each one of them, I started taking a listen to the stories, and I
Yeah.
started putting them together. Because one of the things that's really interesting, and as I learned, and everyone in your audience should take the time to do it themselves. I'm not trying to push my religion on anybody. I'm just saying this is my path. This is how I came about to learning these things, right? But you should be open-minded. That's one of the things that I think society is starting to lose, is everybody's so closed-minded and has this rock hard opinion about everything. I'm like, you guys, calm down. Let's have conversation that is not emotionally driven. Let's just talk, because, you may be wrong, I may be wrong. And as we talk, we can get each other. But as I started learning about all these of the religions, I started to see that there's stories from one religion to the other. Like Jesus, for instance, is in Buddhism, right? He actually is a part of Hinduism. There is stories about him on there. He's recognized as a person, right? So, that doesn't weaken my belief structure. It actually reinforces it, because I know that person actually existed. Now, in Christianity, he's the son of God, right? In Hinduism, he's one of the prophets, right? So it's really interesting to me and it was more about curiosity. I started learning, and as I started having that foundational morality as being the thing that drives all these religions, I started to understand myself more. And I started to get to the point where I'm more of a universal believer that there is like a greater something out there, that we have a consciousness that goes all up to it. So in other words, we are all brothers and sisters. We are all connected, right? And all that stuff feeds into the other wheels, and going back to the wheels, right? Because now meditation makes more sense. Spirituality, if you want to call it prayer, if you want to call it meditation, they're all similar in nature. They all do kind of the same thing, but they're all a necessary part of having, peace in your heart or clarity in your mind.
Yeah, I think that goes to the labeling, right? When we label something, it filters or separate people. And I truly agree with you that we are one, oneness. We are all interconnected. So the competition when it comes to work, when it comes to companies, when it comes to career, whatever you call it, it could be really in a healthy way, because we have, like what you said, you have a dedicated gift. I have dedicated gift. And instead of looking like, I control that, I don't want to share whatever I know, you don't want to share. Instead of thinking about that, it's really like, how can we actually collaborate, you know? And thinking that I'm sharing this with a relation with the spirituality, because when we always look into or think about our thoughts or our brain, we forget about the spirituality that beyond the thinking, it's more on connection, right? And when we use that, we don't really, because usually when we have conflict, it comes from our thoughts, right? It comes with attachment. We think all of this judgment, criticism, but if we detach that, there's no such thing as that. It's just really our thinking.
Oh yeah. No, our thoughts are super powerful. And a lot of the stuff that we coin as reality is nothing more than imagination. And one of the greatest things that you could see in today's society, what are the two biggest things that people are suffering from mentally? It's depression and anxiety. Those are the two biggest things that are running, mentally speaking, right? And what is depression? What is anxiety? Anxiety are thoughts that are focused in the future, overthinking the future. What is depression? Thoughts that are focused in the past. None of that stuff matters, because the only thing that matters is right now, right? This present moment is the only thing that matters. The only thing we have control over, the only thing that actually is affecting us. Everything else is thoughts.
Exactly. I agree with you. And since you mentioned with the society, right? What's your thoughts about social media, especially, for your kids? I don't know how. I think it's getting tougher and tougher to really raise the kids. I don't have kids yet, but like it curious me that, you have your own life to handle or deal with, personal and work, and phone is very accessible. And I don't know if your kids have phones, but what's your thoughts about social media? Does it really have a very huge danger, and if so, how do you think that it will help you as a parent and also help the kids not only our own kids, but also the kids out there, the young generation, to really live and slowly accessing their true potential?
So that's a fantastic question, Cindy. So social media to me is no different than a gun or any weapon. It depends on how it's used. Okay.
All right.
So for me, social media could be a great learning tool.
Yes.
In today's world, the internet has spawned off this amount of access to knowledge, which is incredible. It's never been like that. Now, social media gives us the next level of that, which, if again, going back to being detached emotionally and having the ability to talk to people, if you use social media the right way, it could be fantastic. Now, it was no different than what my parents had to deal with when they were raising me, and I was allowed to roam the streets, and I had these friends that I had out there, and they didn't know about these friends, and they may have been good friends. It's up to the parent to make sure that the people I'm interacting with are the right people. It's no different in social media. It's a little harder, right? Because you have access to so many more people, and you have access, and people have a lot more people have access to you. So the way all my kids have tablets, all my kids have phones. They are on social media. I do control it. One of the things that I will tell you is, if you have an open mind, again, having an open mind and knowing a little about what it is, you can control it a lot better, right? Mark Cuban was on a podcast not too long ago, and he made me really think about something that was really interesting. He says, my kids have a phone and they have a TikTok account, or they have whatever account, but I reverse it. I told them, my kids, you can have this with one condition: I get your password. Now, what does that give Mark? What does that give you as a parent? If I go on this, my son or my daughter's account, and I'm actually start scrolling through, the algorithm, the AI that's actually giving them the next post, gives you a lot of insight into what that kid's thinking. So if used correctly, and you're seeing, like my 9-year-old, he sees things about Fortnite. He thinks a nice looking girl, which is not too explicit. Great, and you keep going, and it's like, okay, this is not bad. And he's got some music, and he's got, good, here's your phone back, right? If he starts looking at stuff that doesn't make sense, or then you got to there's a great time to take a moment and say, hey, man, let's have a conversation about this. What is going on here, right? There's a lot of posts about this stuff, which means you've been clicking and liking this thing, and that may be something that spurs off a conversation. But it's all about parental being involved in your kid's life, and it becomes a little more tougher because there's so much more out there. But social media is like anything else, man. It's in the hands of the users and in the hands of the parents to make sure that the kids are being protected.
That's true. One of the things that I noticed, though, with social media is having the true connection.
Yeah. Well, that lacks a bit. I use social media not to connect with others. Like, I'm not a big DM or Facebook person. I know many people live in that thing, and that's their only source. I actually have a friend that's a married couple that interacts on social media. They live in the same household, and they're actually interacting.
Oh, wow.
It's very odd. It's funny to see it, but I understand where you're coming from. I take social media, and again, it's like anything else. It's the way you use the platform, because even TV, if you're in front of your TV 8 hours a day, I mean, that's not going to be any good for you, right? If you're buried in a book all your life, that's no good for you either, right? And books are fantastic things. So to me, it's like, I don't interact. I don't have like friends or social media friends. I actually have real friends that we go out, we go to dinner. And I mean, I think that's healthy, because as humans, you need that interaction. I'm not opposed. I have family in Italy, and I can't see them all the time. So that in that instance, social media is a great gap. I could talk to my uncle, I could talk to my cousin.
Yes.
But again, it's like anything else in life. Too much of anything will kill you. I mean, that's the sad truth. Too much oxygen will kill you. Too much water will kill you. And, if you use social media the wrong way, it'll hurt you as well.
Yeah. So I guess the right word to say is finding the balance, finding the strong boundaries when you're going to limit looking at your social media. I'm going to tell you my story with that before I doing what I'm doing right now. I'm telling you that when I was in Singapore, I was so trapped I was a victim, but I I'm so happy that I have overcome that. I paid for a fee to get followers, viewers, and
Oh, wow.
likes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was surrounded with the environment where it's all about being online. And I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And it's blessed in disguise. My account was banned and I have to start fresh. And I was like, this time I'm going to do best. I'm going to use the platform in the right way that most of my friends, it's not part of the Instagram or this is Instagram anymore. And most of the accounts that I'm following is really through what I've been doing as, empowering people's lives. So I think as a human, it's very important that when you bring yourself into more awareness and you catch yourself that you did that, but you always have a choice to make to really accessing your true potential. And we all want that, but it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to have like a sense of self-awareness first, right?
Yeah.
And then because you'll catch yourself, it's really funny. And that's one of the other things I started noticing is like there's times where I showed up to a meeting or an event and it's like after that event, I'm like, who was that person? That was amazing. Like I was actually patting myself on the back. It's like, who was that? Why can't I be that person all the time? I said all the right things. I didn't speak out of turn. I was really intelligent. Like, why can't I do that all the time? And that's where I started, my curiosity started to grow and I started reading all these books. But everyone has that person inside their heads and they come out every so often. The trick and the thing I'm trying to do in my book is getting you to have your own access on demand to that person. So you could be the best version and then you could have the best life.
Exactly. So coming to my very favorite question about optimism, right? At your age, 47 with 5 kids and also dealing with your personal, also work-wise, being a parent, being a husband, being being a friend, you name it, you got it. And looking from the physical side, you look like handling it very well. All right.
Yeah,
And I'm
doing a good job of lying.
Yeah. And I think there's a reason with that maybe it will be valuable for you to share with us. Actually, how do you keep yourself optimistic?
And that's I hate to keep pushing the stuff for the book because I feel like I'm selling the book, but I'm really not. I'm trying to tell people it's like the effective routines are really important. Having healthy habits in your life are really important to keeping yourself because listen, I have my days. There is plenty of days that I don't want to get out of bed. There are plenty of days where, earlier this morning, I was sitting here like this and I couldn't get any kind of motivation to do anything, right? There is things like that. And the only way to fix it is to have these healthy habits in your life, right? If you have your nutrition straight, you have your fitness straight, you have these healthy routines in your life, your heart is clear and you're happy, you have good relationships in your life. That's another big one, peace in the heart. If you have bad relationships in your life, it's going to be tough because you're always going to have that negativity in your life. Even if you keep yourself positive, you're going to have that negativity. So there's a lot to keeping myself motivated, but I can tell you that it's well worth the investment. It will get you a lot more rewards. Falling into that victimhood is definitely the counter to everything I'm saying, because many people, what ends up happening is they start going the other direction because they start becoming a victim. They stop doing all the healthy habits and you start spiraling out of control and you become the worst version of yourself, right? And it takes work to pull that out if you're so far gone. So I have a lot of things that I do in my day-to-day life that get me and keep me happy. One of the really interesting things that I read in one of the books is that your brain can't tell whether you're laughing because you're happy or you're happy because you're laughing. So sometimes this weirdo here, like I'm really crazy. I'll sit in the mirror and I'll go like this. I'll go like this. And it gets to the point that it gets you out of that bad mood, right? So if you're in a little bit of a bad mood, you get in the mirror, just start smiling at yourself in the mirror. Watch what happens.
Exactly. I think the humor, right? And not taking so many things in life, especially yourself too personally, because I think as we grow older, we tend to not losing up ourselves into a childhood, like a child and like a kid. And I think I'm always like that. Like I prefer to be silly, looking funny, because if that makes other people laugh or smile, that's amazing, isn't it? And as you grow older, you don't want to look like looking older more. you want to influence and bring that energy that I think a lot of people know already what to do. So I think I'm curious that people know where to go, what to find, but where exactly the missing piece that people lack of, pushing that to motivate themselves.
I think it's that autonomy. There's a certain part of your brain that is built on, just like a computer, it runs a program, right? And when you see it more than anybody else is have you ever driven a car? You get like something that you do every day, driving to work, right?
Yeah.
And you just are not doing anything. Your brain's doing it all, but your consciousness is doing other stuff, listening to the radio, it's doing this. And that's where people get lost, because there's a lot of people that are stuck in negative programs. They do things just out of bad habits, right? They're going to McDonald's and having breakfast because it's on the way to work, and they don't even think about it. They don't even think about if they're hungry, if they're not hungry. They're just doing it because it's 8 o'clock in the morning and it's just time to, that thing is time to do that thing, right? Or smoking a cigarette, or not spending time with your family, being with the wrong people. All that stuff is just habit upon habit upon habit. And that's why I start telling everybody, it's like, it's really hard, especially as you get older, to take all that stuff and say, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to live this great life that Victor's saying to live, what I'm going to put. It's impossible. You start slow. You pull one thing that replaces a bad habit in place, and you put this healthy habit in place, and then you do another one. You start building on it, building on it, building on it, and you'll see, you'll get yourself reprogrammed.
I love that. The replacement, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, Atomic Habits is a great book. It's actually one of the books that has inspired me.
Yeah. So now we almost come to the end, and I just want to share once again to people, because I've read this book. And one of the things that I really would like to recommend a lot of people who would like to start fresh, or start to continue replacing, on how to really access your highest and truest potential. This is the book that you can start with. You know why? Because it contains a lot of the most important, not the most, but the entire pillars of your life that really help you to start and begin with health, clarity, whatever you name it, in this book. And also it's very easy to read. All right. And Victor actually provided a lot of very useful and valuable tips and strategies here, like the sleep, the meditation, the exercise. And again, he mentioned many times replacement. That's a really right word when you have so long of bad habits that you feel like you have no chance to change. I can guarantee you 100%, as long as you live, you're living, you have a life to live every day, you have a chance. It's a matter of choice. Now, if you want to change today, because we are in the present moment, have this book, read it, and give Victor a review or a comment from where can they buy this book.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that too, Cindy. First of all, accessingyourtruepotential.com. They can get it from the website. It'll put you to Amazon. They can find it on Amazon. It's on Audible. It's pretty much everywhere. So, and once you have it, I am all over social media. Especially, I'm pretty big on LinkedIn. Don't be shy. Please DM me if you have any questions, anything like that. I love to help people. Just reach out to me. I will connect with you. I have a couple thousand before I hit that limit. If not, we can exchange, or we could do whatever. But please connect. Ask me any questions. I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. So there you go. He already gave you the information where to grab. And I love that you mentioned that it's also available with Audible, because not a lot of people are a fan of reading, right? Yeah. So it's good to have Audible mode as well. And there you go, everyone. You know where to reach, you know where to purchase. And one thing of a question that I would like to ask you before I let you go, Victor, for this very challenging and a lot of distractions happening in our society. so many things that you can be overwhelmed, right? But the only thing that we have is the present moment. We have the now. And I have a question for you. For those people who can't really shift that mindset yet of putting themselves to focus on the present moment, how do you think that they could shift that tiny step, where they could start?
So I tell everybody this story about when I was 350 pounds. I was at one of the worst points in my life. And it was after the gastric bypass. So I wasn't 350 pounds. It was closer to like 280, something like that. But I was overweight and was after the gastric bypass. And I had kids and I couldn't move. And I was in that kind of place that you're talking about, right? Really negative, really in the mud. Like I could not get motivated to do anything. And the only thing I convinced myself to do was get up and take a walk. And I walked around the block and I went home. The next day, I walked around the block again. That walking to around the block became a little habit, right? And then it became 2 blocks. And then the house that I was living at the time was actually across the street from this park that had a decent sized lake. Then that 1 block became, I walked around the lake, right? And then it became a membership to Title Boxing, which is one of those cardio boxing places. And it was a lot of fun. And I did that for a little bit. And then I got a gym membership. But what I'm trying to say is that don't try to do anything crazy. There's a lot of fad diets. There's a lot of ridiculous things people think they should be doing. Don't do anything like that. Take it very slow. If you're feeling depressed, a lot of times, and you don't want to get out of bed, a lot of times just getting a little sunlight will help, right? And then you just talk to someone. That helps. You know, have someone that you confide in or pay for someone to talk to, but that helps a lot. But it's the little steps in life that really make a huge thing. And it's not about the steps so much as adding to it. And then you add to it. And then you add to it. And before you know it, you're not going to recognize yourself.
I love that. That's what I always advocate anyways. Tiny step, because that little thing will eventually put you somewhere incredible that you never thought that, oh, I can do that. So thank you so much, Victor. It's a fantastic conversation. Once again, just to make sure that everyone catch it, that actually your social media is VX or V Calabrese, but I will put that on my blog and also on the podcast, so everyone could reach out to you. And definitely don't be shy, especially if you're in the transition of changing from career to business. Victor knows a lot of information and experiences, so I'm pretty sure that he's more than happy to help you with. Thank you so much, Victor. It's a fantastic, and I really feel privileged with your mission and purpose of helping a lot of people, especially reaching out to this book, of publishing this book, to really helping the young generation, because I truly big believer that we can do so much things that we can help our our young generation to have really accessing your true potential. But nevertheless, it's not only for young generation, but for everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on the show, Cindy. It was awesome.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching or listening right now. If you find this episode very helpful, very valuable, don't hesitate once again to reach out to Victor Calabrese or Calabrese. And also don't forget to share it to whomever you think will be benefiting this episode. The more, the merrier. And remember, take little by little, because that little thing will eventually grow and you will amazingly, incredible, surprisingly accessing your true potential. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that interview, and I hope you find it inspiring and motivating. Remember, stay optimistic and keep taking action slowly but surely for your big dreams. Thank you once again, and I'll see you on the next episode here at Empower Your Life.